Okay, hi. So, as you know, I tend to prescribe weight training for a variety of goals that people want: losing body fat, gaining muscle, getting stronger, just getting a level of overall fitness. Now, something that people come to me with often is a question that, if I'm doing weight training, do I not need to do some sort of cardio to offset that? Now, the first question you've got to ask yourself there is, what is cardio? So people think of cardio as being going running, going swimming, using a bike, that sort of thing. Anything that's prolonged activity. Whereas really, cardiovascular, your cardiovascular system, your heart and your lungs, so cardio training is anything that stresses out that system. So if you're out of breath, you're training your cardiovascular system. Now the brilliant thing with weight training is it can be manipulated with rest times, with tempos, with their weight, how heavy it is, with the volume of training, with the duration of training, with the selection of exercises. Rest times is a big one. Now you can manipulate many variables in order to achieve what you want with it. So that does go the same with a bike or a treadmill, though, to an extent. There's a lot of variables that you can manipulate on there to gain different training effects. Just the fact that using some resistance tends to be, for changing your body shape, is almost the only way, and that is usually what people come to me for. Now, if you are doing weight training and you're concerned about your cardiovascular system, if your rest times are relatively short, I'm talking 30 seconds a minute, and your volume is relatively high, so say within an hour you're doing at least 30 sets, I would have thought, then you're going to be straining your cardiovascular system. Especially using things, often I will give people circuits, a great way of, for fat burn, a little bit of hypertrophy, and it'll train your cardiovascular system. So maybe I've given someone, we do 12 deadlifts, then we do 12 overhead presses, then we do 12 walking lunges, and then we do 12 rows, and then we get a rest. So I don't know, something like that. So during that time, they're working. If they were doing that set, they'd be working over a minute, and fairly high level of intensity. By the end, they're out of breath. If you're out of breath, you've trained your cardiovascular system. So essentially, if you manipulate weight training correctly, then there's no need, from a health perspective, to do traditional cardiovascular activity. Now, if you want to run a marathon, you need to run. And I'm not saying never ever go on a piece of cardiovascular equipment. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if you want to change your shape, it needs to be resistance training. If you're trying to lose body fat, it needs to be a level of intensity that is higher than steady state. You don't want to become efficient doing it. But for your health, don't be worried if you're training with weights. As long as your rest times are relatively low and your volume is relatively high, you will train your cardiovascular system. Obviously, if you're lifting something 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, as heavy as you can, you're resting for 5 minutes, and you're just training purely to be stronger, that's not giving you much cardiovascular, if any, barely any cardiovascular training. But only powerlifters and weightlifters are doing that sort of training. For most people, if I was training you and you were looking to lose body fat, or you're looking to just aid your general fitness, it wouldn't be like that. You'd still be training. I would usually have you still training with weight, but it will be manipulated in a way that it can achieve your goals, and certainly you can achieve cardiovascular goals with weight training as well. One last thing to make a note of: if you are interested in your body composition and you're trying to preserve a level of muscle mass whilst being lean, cardiovascular, you can use some types of cardiovascular training in order to aid your fat loss, but not steady state. You're much better. I've seen one research study in particular, looking at one group doing an hour of steady state walking, and then the other doing 6 30-second sprints. Okay, they rested about a couple of minutes between each. So one did 3 minutes of total activity, one did an hour. One that did 3 minutes lost far more weight than the one did now, just purely because of the intensity of the exercise. And intensity, if you keep your cardiovascular training intense, it won't have as much of a detrimental effect on your muscle size and your body shape. Whereas the longer the duration of cardio in the literature will tell you that you do, the bigger the detriment to your muscle mass and your strength as well. Hope that helped, but just Takeaway message is, if you're manipulating weight training correctly so that you're out of breath, then you are training your cardiovascular system, and that is more than enough for your health, and therefore it's not essential that you go away and do, and sometimes it could be detrimental to what you're trying to get out of your weight training, to go and do a load of steady state cardiovascular activity. Okay, thanks a lot.